Okay, so I'm editing this video right now and I realized I never made an intro. So, hi, welcome to the vlog. Hope you like it. Okay, now on to the actual vlog. So, I finished 2 books this morning. Well, I finished one last night and then the other one this morning. So the first one was A Duke by Default by Alyssa Cole. This is the sequel to A Princess in Theory, which I read last year, I believe, and I really liked it. This follows the main character from A Princess in Theory's best friend. She gets an apprenticeship to a sword maker in Scotland. So she travels there to do this apprenticeship. And basically the setup of the book is that she arrives in Scotland and her boss was supposed to pick her up from the airport, but he doesn't show up and he's not answering his phone. So she gets like an Uber to take her to the sword making place, and she shows up and she sees this man and woman sword fighting, and in her mind she's like, oh my god, this man is attacking this woman, I must go save her. So she runs up to them and pepper sprays the guy, and of course he turns out to be her boss. So they don't hit it off well at the beginning. They have a really hate banter type of relationship. The boss does not want her there. It wasn't even his idea to have this apprentice. It was his brother's idea. So he's just like not into her being there at all. And oh my god, I loved this book. Alyssa Cole is definitely becoming one of my favorite romance writers. It was just so much fun. It took place in Scotland. There was sword fighting. Also, if any of you are fans of The Bachelor or Bachelorette, the guy on the cover looks exactly like Peter to me. Like, I actually had to do a little bit of research to see if it was Peter, because I know he does a little bit of modeling. I genuinely thought it was. So this entire book, I was picturing Peter as the main male character, which just made this so nice. The main character has ADHD, and that really impacts a lot of her life. She learns about the diagnosis in the book, so you kind of see her at the beginning struggling with why she does certain things that she does, and then figuring out like, oh, this is why. Like, it's not just me, it's actually something, and that's why I do these things. So that was really cool. I really liked this. I gave it 4 stars. I am super excited for the next book. And then the other book that I finished this morning, it's called Jane Doe by Victoria Helen Stone. And this, I literally went into it knowing basically nothing about it. This is about a girl named Jane, and she is kind of a psychopath. The only person in the world that she's close to is her best friend, who prior to this book committed suicide. We find out that her best friend was in a relationship with this guy who was just super abusive and manipulative, and he made her feel like garbage, and she ended up killing herself because of it. And so Jane goes undercover at the place where this guy works, and she just tries to infiltrate his life and fuck shit up. I really liked Jane. I loved being in her head. She was really aware of how messed up she was, but she just didn't care, and I really enjoyed that. It was a really quick read. I think it only took me 3 hours to read this. It's kind of tough for me because the guy character that she's trying to get revenge on was the most infuriating. The stuff that came out of his mouth was the most twisted, manipulative, disgusting, vile things. I had a hard time enjoying this book because I would just get so angry every time he spoke. But it also helped that the main character's inner monologue was also angry. So I don't know. This was tough for me to rate because it's that was the response that the book was supposed to make me feel, but I didn't enjoy that feeling. It's I don't really love reading super sad books because they make me feel sad, and I don't like to feel sad. But am I going to rate a book lower because it made me feel what it was supposed to make me feel? Just because I didn't like those feelings? So kind of complicated, I know. But I ended up giving this 3 stars, and the main reason I did that was I didn't like the ending. It all kind of culminated to this perfect moment where she could get revenge, and I don't know what this says about me, but I was really hoping it would be a lot darker. She took a little bit of a safer route, which I get it, but personally, I would have enjoyed something a little bit different, it wasn't satisfying enough for me. So I ended up giving it 3 stars. I would say that this is really good for fans of You by Caroline Kepnes. The inner monologues of both of the main characters in this book and in You kind of reminded me of each other, except I felt like this character actually had justification for the things that she was doing, whereas in You, Jo was just a fucking psychopath. But yeah, it wasn't a bad book. I liked it. Okay, so I finished the 2 books I was reading. First one, I was reading pretty much all month. That's not because it was a bad book. It actually ended up being maybe my favorite book of the year, although I know I have said that now for like 10 books. This is definitely going to be on the favorites list. I'm gonna have a really hard time at the end of the year deciding what my favorites are. But anyways, that was Sping Silver by Naomi Novik. Oh my god, where to even start with this book? I don't even know. Basically, this is kind of a reimagining of Rumpelstiltskin. It's not a straight up retelling. It's just kind of inspired by Rumpelstiltskin. It is in this world where normal everyday people live. There is royalty, there are commoners, and there are also these magical creatures called Starrick who live in a different world but come into this world every once in a while to cause chaos. The Starrick are very feared by people, and you just know not to mess with them. There is a war brewing between the Starrick king and a fire demon. There's 3 main characters. These 3 women kind of get swept up in this war. They all play a different part. The main character is this girl right here, Miriam. She discovers she has the ability to turn silver into gold, and that catches the Starrick King's attention. So he basically steals her away to the Starrick world so that she can turn all his silver into gold. They really have like a Hades Persephone type of vibe going on. Then we have a girl named Wanda who, her mother died when she was young, and she has 2 younger brothers that she cares for. And her father is a drunk and a gambler, and he gets into a lot of debt. So in order to pay off that debt, Wanda goes to work for Miriam's family to do stuff around the house and help them out. And she is lying to her father about how much of the debt she's paying off by working for them, and slowly she's trying to save up enough money to get away from him because he is abusive. Then our third and final girl, Irina, catches the eye of the Tsar who is looking for a bride, and she has to marry him, and she discovers that he has some really dark secrets and she fears for her life, and she also has some secrets of her own. This book was just so amazing and clever. Like the way that these 3 narratives intersected and weaved together, my mind was blown at certain points when you figure out how the stories connect. It was just incredible, and the atmosphere of this book was great. I think this would end up being a really great winter read because it pretty much takes place during the winter the entire time, and the way that Naomi Novik described the winter and the setting, I genuinely felt cold while I was reading this book, which is insane because it is 110 degrees out where I live, but I was burrowing myself under blankets while I read this because just the vibrancy in which she described winter and painted this picture, I could feel the cold. It's kind of a slow book. She spends a lot of time and care setting up all these stories so that around the halfway point when things really start to pick up, it just packs so much of a bigger punch because you're already super invested in these characters and you care so much about them. I said I was reading this book all of August. I think the first half of the book took me a couple weeks, and then the last half I read in a day. Once you hit a certain point, it's like you just can't put it down. And I loved these characters so much. At the core of this book, it's really about the strength of women and mother-daughter relationships, and I absolutely loved it. Gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It's just everything. It's everything. So bouncing off of that book, I read Seafire by Natalie C. Parker. I received this for review from Penguin, and I believe this came out a couple days ago. I was really excited about this book. The blurb says that it is like Wonder Woman meets Mad Max Fury Road. Mad Max Fury Road is probably in my top 5 favorite movies. It's safe to say I was super excited for this book. Unfortunately, I was pretty disappointed. Basically, this follows an all-female crew of pirates, and at the beginning of the story, something really terrible happens to our main character, and so the whole book is her trying to get revenge for what happened. I'll start with what I liked about this book. I thought that the strongest part of this book was the world building. I found that the scenes where we were off ship and exploring the world and the different towns and the different communities, those were the strong parts, and those were the parts where I was like genuinely couldn't put it down. I wanted to learn more, and those were also the parts where I saw the most Mad Max influence. So the world building was definitely the strongest parts. Where I think this book lacked was in its characters and its plot, which are two very important things. So the characters were very basic. I've pretty much seen variations of all of them in different young adult books. Except for one character, there was one side character named Jaime who communicated through sign language. She also had PTSD. She was kind of the healer on the ship. She was the most interesting to me, but unfortunately she was a side character, so we don't get to spend as much time with her as I would have liked to. Our main character was super basic. Like, she could have been Katniss, she could have been Triss, she could have been literally every single YA heroine I've ever read about in my entire life. There was nothing really unique about her, and she was kind of a terrible captain. Which leads me to the plot. Pretty much 75% of this plot was something bad would happen. The ship would be in trouble. They'd figure it out. Oh look, hey, another bad thing's happening. They'd be in trouble. They'd figure it out. Another bad thing's happening. It was just an endless cycle of the captain fucking things up and them having to narrowly escape danger. And it was honestly just boring at a certain point. For a pirate book, I was super bored with every scene where they were on the ship. I really didn't care about the endless scenes of people running around the ship, trying to figure out what to do, looking off in the distance. Like, I get it. I'm over it. Let's move on. I also found the main character's best friend to be incredibly annoying. I wasn't a fan of the main character, but the best friend was so annoying. Every single time she could, she would undermine the captain of this ship in front of the entire crew, which really pissed me off. And she did something that really put everyone in this crew in danger. The amount of risk she took on a stranger, and how like she put like her entire family, all these people who are her sisterhood, in so much danger for this stranger, I just could not get behind that. There's also a really bizarre romance that comes out of nowhere towards the end of the book. Every time they interacted, I got zero romantic or sexual vibes from them, and then out of nowhere they just start making out, and I was like, wait a minute, what? It just came out of nowhere, and I don't understand why it was put in there. I honestly feel like it was just put in there because this is a young adult book, and they're like, oh, we need a romance, so they just threw it in, but it made absolutely no sense. Also, this isn't the book's fault, but like everyone on Goodreads says that this is a queer story. It's tagged as LGBTQ. So many of the reviews say that there is a female-female romance in here, and where is it? Because I know exactly who those reviewers are talking about. There are 2 female side characters who seem to have something more going on, but it is so vague. It is never stated on page. If I wasn't actively looking for a queer relationship, I wouldn't even have picked up on it. It wasn't enough for me to say this has a queer romance, because it doesn't. Maybe the next books will. I will be really excited for that. It really frustrates me that it is constantly being tagged as LGBTQ on Goodreads when it's not. But again, that's not the book's fault or the author's fault that people are tagging it as LGBTQ. I ended up giving this 3 stars. It wasn't bad. I know I kind of just ranted about it. I got a little bit more angry as I was talking, which I'm not mad about this book, and I did like it. I just think it could have been so much better. I am hopeful though that the next book in the series could be better, crossing my fingers, because I did really like this world, and I do really like the idea of this crew of women who are all here for each other in a sisterhood and ride or die with each other, but it just didn't really live up to what I wanted. Okay, we are back today with another cleaning montage because I really need to clean my room. I said I was gonna do it in my last vlog, and then I didn't. I actually did a little bit of like preliminary cleaning yesterday, so you guys wouldn't see how messy it was because it was real bad. But basically there's a couple things I want to do. I want to rearrange the furniture in my room because I'm just not happy with where my bed is located. But in order to do that, I need to clean my room, and also I need to minimize the stuff that I have. About a year ago, I went through everything I own and I got rid of like 75% of it, and somehow I've accumulated all the stuff back. Like every single drawer in my room and cabinet and surface is just covered in things that I don't even know what it is or where I got it or why I have it. So before I am able to rearrange everything, I need to clean, sort through everything, and figure out what I'm gonna keep, what I'm gonna donate, and what I'm gonna throw away. So let's get started. I'm literally dying. Okay, so I just got a package in the mail of some books that I ordered from Amazon. This is a really good selection of books, if I do say so myself. The first one I actually finished reading last night, Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is it's basically an urban fantasy that takes place in this post-apocalyptic world, and it takes place in what was formerly Navajo Reservation, and it's heavily based on Native American myths and legends. There are now gods and monsters who walk the earth, and our main character is a monster slayer, and she goes around killing monsters. And it was really good. I really liked it. I'm excited for the sequel. The world really reminded me of Mad Max, which I think I mentioned earlier in this video that Mad Max Fury Road is like one of my all-time favorite movies, so anything that reminds me of that is great. The next book I got, I have an e-arc of, and I started reading it, but then I was really loving it, so I decided just to purchase a copy, and that is The Black God's Drums. And this is a Tor novella that just came out, I think, a couple days ago. And it takes place in New Orleans, and it's basically about this main character who has an Orisha inside of her, which is an African god. So she has the Orisha of wind and storms living inside of her. This cover is gorgeous, by the way. The next one I got, oh my god, I am so excited for this book. Hello! Come on! It is A Study in Honor by Claire Odell. And this is basically a reimagination of Sherlock Holmes, where Sherlock and Watson are two black women. And I also think it's queer. I think that they are in a relationship or there is a romance between them. This just sounds amazing. Hello. What? You like it too? He's like, fuck yeah, queer Sherlock Holmes. And then the last book I got is Jade City. This one, all three of these books are relatively short, and then this one is like a monster. But this is Jade City by Fonda Lee. I've heard a lot about this book. When I read The Poppy War, a lot of people recommended this book to me. It's a fantasy book, and it says that it's reminiscent of the best classic Hong Kong gangster films. It says it's gritty, but yeah, that's all I know about it. It's basically like a fantasy gangster mafia type of book, and I've just heard amazing things, and I'm so excited. He's trying really hard to be a good boy, but he just wants to play right now. All right, you need to get out of the frame. So yes, these are the 4 books that I just bought, and this one is going right onto my red shelf, which I love when that happens. I love when I buy a book and I can just immediately put it on my red shelf. But these 3 books are going to be a part of my September TBR, which I don't know yet if I'm going to do like a legit TBR video, even though I do have a set TBR that I'm going to be... Where did he go? I get nervous when he disappears. What was I saying? I do have a set TBR for September.
And then this is where I literally just stop talking mid-sentence and I end the clip without finishing my sentence because I'm just so professional.
Okay, so last night I started City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab, and I just finished it this morning. This actually came out yesterday, I think. No, it came out 2 days ago. It came out on August 28th. This is a middle grade. It takes place in Scotland, and it's about this girl named Cassidy Blake, who her parents are paranormal writers. They write about ghosts and all things paranormal, and at the start of this book they are offered a TV show to travel around the world going to haunted places and looking for ghosts. But little do they know that their daughter Cassidy, the main character, can actually see ghosts. A couple years ago she drowned and was saved by a ghost, and ever since then she has been able to see ghosts. I really enjoyed this. I think I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought that I would, because I'm not the biggest middle grade fan. I think I'm super picky when it comes to middle grade with what I like, which is to be expected. I'm not the target audience for middle grade, so a lot of it just doesn't click with me, but I really liked this. It's about to be fall and it's gonna be spooky, and I think if you're looking for a good spooky fall Halloween type of book that isn't going to scare you, this is a really good one. There's a lot of ghosts and they travel into the Vale, which is like the world where the ghosts live. There's also a lot of Harry Potter references in here, which I read a lot of the reviews, and some reviewers say that the Harry Potter references annoyed them because there was a lot. I personally enjoyed it, and I related to the main character because literally like every person that she met, she was like, excuse me, what's your Hogwarts house? And that is literally me. I ask everyone I know what their Hogwarts house is. Yeah, I really liked it. It was a super quick read. Like I said, I started it right before I went to bed and then finished it right after I woke up while I was drinking my coffee. It was super quick to get through and I really liked it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, so this is going to be the end of the vlog. I'm gonna quickly wrap up the books that I read. The first book I read was A Duke by Default, and I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Jane Doe, and I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. I read Spinning Silver, and I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I read Seafire, and I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. I read Trail of Lightning, and I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. And then lastly, I read City of Ghosts, and I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. So overall, a pretty good reading vlog. Everything was 3 stars and above, which is pretty good. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!